Hi, I'm Rachel and welcome to our pet shop project. I'm one of the artists that works with the Immortal Bloom collective. We are a collective of artists and technologists that bring circularity and environmentally aware ethics within the art installations. And to respond to the COVID-19 lockdown, we wanted to try and make craft workshops as accessible as possible for people within the home. So it's really a space where people can stay creative and stay safe. Also, for those who have visual impairments, we will be having audio description for all of our videos. Today, as the first workshop in the Pet Shop project, we are going to be looking at how to make your very own miniature Eden project. Now, pet plastic is an abundant resource that you get from your weekly shop, and I wanted to try and redesign these into a way of making your own greenhouses to help with seedling growth in your garden. PET is another word for either Petra or polyethylene terephthalate, which is pretty technical. However, it is a plastic that comes in different sources of packaging, to industrial waste, to polyester fabrics, and so since plastic is a very toxic material, we wanted to try and recreate that to help elongate the life cycle of a plastic waste product. So when you have a look at your pet plastic, this is a great box. You will find that it usually has a little symbol called with a little triangle, which has got arrows, and it has number 1 in it. This means that it is polyethylene terephthalate. Now, not all plastics will have the number 1. Sometimes they have a 0.1, which say RPET, which means it's already been recycled once. Other plastics, such as polyprop, which is usually what some mushroom packs are made out of, again, they will have the symbol number 5. But any further information about different plastics, just check out our video description. Another interesting thing about these plastic products is that you should be able to find another symbol, if I can find one on here. There is another symbol that has a fork and a glass next to it. That means that this product is food safe. Now, the interesting thing about that is that when not all the time, sometimes, but not all the time, will you find that symbol on that plastic. That means that that plastic is not actually good for your food. Sometimes when you go to the takeaway, like an Indian or a Chinese or any sort of like Tupperware that you get with them, sometimes they may not have that symbol on them, which means that that releases a carcinogenic gas into your food, which is a toxic gas. So just keep an eye out for that. Today's workshop is transferable to any sort of plastic waste that you've got. But today I have brought a little fruit box, which I'm going to deconstruct and reconstruct again into a little miniature house. Equipment wise, all you need to bring with you is some sellotape, a thimble, some thread, scissors, but if not, that's okay. You can still use some larger scissors, some thread, and a needle. Now, you can get self-threading needles, and that will be in the link below. And this is usually for people who have difficulties with low vision. So, just going to clear the space. So I want you to begin with, I want you to just have like a look at your box, have a feel around, especially in the textures, because the textures are really interesting, as this can also dictate how to put your box back together again. But for now, just have a little feel around and see if check if there's any holes in the bottom panel. If you put your box down in front of you, lift it up in your hands and turn the bottom panel towards your face. That's your bottom, and then the sides are the walls, and then at the top is a little overhanging ridge. This bit is quite tough, so, just be careful when you're cutting into it, as it can create a sharp edge. So if only you get your scissors and choose a corner off your box, ridge side down, following your mold lines as guides. So what you should be left with is 4 cutaways to the bottom, and then using your bottom line that meets your wall line as a guide to cut out your bottom panel. So all you're left with is 4 walls and a bottom panel. And you should be left with 5 pieces. I know it seems strange that I'm taking this apart to put it back together again, but this is for you to get to understand the material itself, as well as to reattach it as necessary for your final greenhouse. Once you've got your walls all cut out and your bottom panel, you just want to put your bottom panel to one side. And we are going to then cut off this overhanging ridge from all of the wall panels. So get your scissors, snip along until it completely comes away, and repeat that for all of them. You will find that that the structure of the walls will become less stiff, but that's okay, as it will make it easier for us to then sew it together. Once you've cut out your ridges, you want to get one longer side and one shorter side, and with your edges curving out, you want to put those corners together. Now, if it makes it easier, you can use sellotape to help stabilize your edges, so that when it comes to sewing, it won't be as difficult to manage. So we're just going to use a tiny bit of tape. I'm only going to use this much, so a couple of centimeters long. Stick your 2 cornered edges together, and I'm just going to knit that together so that stays there. Get your needle. Now in the video description, I have included a link to a self-threading needle for those people who have low vision. But for this and for this time, I'm just going to use a size 8 needle. Get your threads, about 1/2 meter long. Snip it, making sure that your thread end is sharp and doesn't actually fray, because it's going to make life a little bit difficult whenever it comes to threading your eye of the needle. Double over your thread and loop it around your finger. Push your needle through that loop to create an overhand knot, and again to make a surgeon's knot, as this will keep your thread together and won't get in the way. For this next stage, I'm going to go through the whipping stitch again. If you don't know how to do this, I have produced another video, and this is included in the video description below. So to help with this next stage, you want to get your thimble. I'm going to put it on my middle finger, as this will help you to push through your needle through the plastic, as it can be a bit tough. So you grab your needle in your index finger and your thumb and get your 2 panel sides together, starting at the right corner, and you want to just start by pushing your needle through, minding your thumb, as close to the corner and the edge as possible, and you just then your knot should be able to grip on, but sometimes that may not be the case, so you want to just make sure that you just grip with your left index finger and repeat that again through the same hole. Now, when you're pushing this through, just be careful of your thumb. So it can be a bit tough at first, but try and slowly push it through so you don't stab yourself. Once you've pushed that through a few times, you want to try and then repeat that all the way down this edge, whipping it in a spiral direction, making sure that you're careful not to pierce through the plastic into your skin. You're just literally whipping it around in a spiral motion around your plastic. Till you get to the other edge, to the other corner at the other edge. Now, as you're coming up to your corner at the other side, for your last stitch, you want to lift it using your finger on the other hand, like so. So when you go through again, you go through that loop, so it creates a little tiny knot, and just to make sure it stays, go through it again. And then snip it. So all that you're left with is your first corner. Now you can't split out as plastic is easily bent, but and it should stay up like an L shape. You want to put again the shorter edge to the longer edge, with it coming in on itself. Again, use your tape to stabilize that together. Making sure that your edges meet together. And so you want to repeat that for all your corners, making sure that your walls match in length. So you should have a longer wall and a shorter wall. Okay. And once you've done that for most of your edges, you should be left with one corner detached. Now, it's just like you've done with the other ones. Just use your tape. And again, we're just going to do like we did with the other corners. Start at 1, use your thimble, push through. If you're not, pick that a couple of times. Cool. Cool, and what you're left with is a little 3D wall shape. After that, you just want to clear your space. It's always good to maintain a clean space when working. Now that you've completed your walls, now we're just going to get our bottom panel that we put to the side. We're going to put our fingers in the middle and get your two short edges to meet together, and then you're just going to crease right up the middle. So you're left with a little, with that shape. We're going to use this as your roof. So you just need to determine which size that this will then meet. I'm going to go for the longer edges as it seems to sit in quite nicely. So what you want to do first is, like you did before, you put your two negative sides together like so. And I'm going to tape that. A little bit of tape. So it's nice and flat with each other. So left with that. Thread your needle again. Get 1/2 meter of thread. Thread. Double over. Make sure that both ends meet. And then loop it around your index finger. Put your needle through to make an overhand knot, and again to make a surgeon's knot. And again, like you did with your corners, we're going to use the whipping stitch. I'm just going to get my thimble, put it on my middle finger to help push the needle through. And you're going to start one corner again, but this time try and keep your needle as close to the edge as possible so that the seam line is nice and thin. If you do get your end thread a bit caught, just snip that back. Like so. And whip around in a spiral motion. And again, as you get to your corner at the other end, you just want to loop that back in through the same hole. So it creates a loop, and you do that again, creating 2 overhand knots, and then snip that away. Which means, so when it comes to then matching the other side of your roof to the other walled panel on this edge, you might want to just crease the plastic so it creates a nice straight line like that. And this time round, I'm going to show you how to do a run and fell for the last stitch. And if you need any help with that, just check out my other video. That's in the video description. So with this, it can be a bit awkward to place your hands. Your roof should meet the outside of your opposite wall. And again, you might want to tape it just to make sure it's nice and secure as you're going along. And again, if you get your needle, thread it again. The reason why I always say to do it at least half a meter is because if you cut your thread too long, it does tend to get tangled up inside itself. Now this time as well, because it can be, depending on how big your walls are, it can be a bit awkward to place your hands on the inside to then pierce from the inside out. So this time around, I'm actually going to start from the outside in. So I'm just going to place my hands in, push in with your thimble, making sure that your fingers are out of the way so that you're left with your thread coming from the outside in. And this time we're going to do a run and fell. Try and make sure that the needle is perfectly in line with your last hole that you've made, and you're just going to push that back in through again and repeat that to make a loop round. So once you've flipped that round once, loop it round twice. And on your second loop, just make sure you've got a loop with the other hand. So when you come back through again, you can make an overhand knot by going around once, around twice, and then pull. So it's nice and secure. So with your running stitch, you want to create a wave-like motion going in and out. You're going into the plastic and then you're coming back out again. And you're doing that all the way along your edge, like so. As you get to your last end of your edge at the other corner, like you did at the start, you just want to repeat that by going in through and looping around twice to secure it. Second time round, make a loop. So when you push your thread through again, you can create the overhand knot. and pull it nice and tight. And you snip away. And so we've made a little miniature greenhouse. What's really good as well about having the gaps and your bottom panel with the holes in it is so that water can still keep going in. But if you've done a larger greenhouse, you don't necessarily have to deconstruct it completely. You can just use the boxes as is and layer it on top of each other, just a simple running stitch. And that will go perfectly into the soil. And for the final example I'm going to show you, this one has a hinge. This is a bit more difficult as you will be keeping the ridge in and just cutting out the base on one and keeping the base on the other. So your plastic waste is going to tell you exactly what you want to do with it. I tend to sort of go with what the material tells me instead of trying to tell the material to do it for me. And so in this one I thought of using 2 different boxes and putting them together, and I end up creating this hinge, which is really rather simple. You make 2 holes in 3 places, and this one, like the whip and stitch, you want to then loop your thread lots of times around until it's nice and secure, making sure that on your first loop always tie an overhand or surgeon's knot, and on your last loop always tie again so it's nice and secure, and then you can create hinges. You might find that when you're punching holes that sometimes the plastic is a bit difficult, and so this is how the material can tell you and what you want to do with it. I've had a lot of fun creating the different types of like miniature greenhouses. I've even created a little village out of it. And what's brilliant about it is that when you go to grow your little seedlings, depending on what they are, within 2 weeks they should shoot right up. So it's really quite effective. And also, when it's all finished with, you can just deconstruct it all out again, take the thread out and just pop it in your recycling bin. That's all for this video. If you want to check out any more information, please check out our website, and our next episode will be learning how to make your very own biodegradable flower pot, and we hope you enjoyed it.